drugs really mess someone up. She was off doing drugs with my biological dad. Like, that's why they got along and how she went to jail. I come from these two people that just have these addiction problems and their brains are fried.
Hello, you are listening to NPE Stories. This is a podcast where NPEs can share their story. I'm your host, Lily, and I found out I was an NPE through an ancestry DNA test that changed my life forever. NPE is a term that stands for not parent expected or non-paternal event. This means that one or more of our parents are not who we believe them to be. NPE Stories is a podcast where NPEs can share their story of what their original family was like, how they found out they were an NPE, and what their journey has been like since the day they found out. And welcome to episode 57. I wanted to first mention, before we get started today, a webinar that I was part of a couple days ago through Right to Know. And I'll put that in the notes, but righttoknow.us is the website you could go to if you want to know more about them. They are a group of people like us who have gotten DNA surprises, and they are now kind of advocates for genetic identity laws. And I'm getting the wording wrong here, but I have their website up. They're just bringing a lot of great information about genetic information and genetic identity. So feel free to check out righttoknow.us. They hosted a webinar with Libby Copeland on Friday, November 13th, 2020. You can actually watch this webinar. I'm assuming they've put it up, or they will probably be posting it very soon. I was part of it. I love the information I got. They will be doing more webinars every month. Libby Copeland wrote this book called The Lost Family, and she is an award-winning journalist. She is not an NPE, I'll say that from the start, but she interviewed over 400 people with DNA surprises or affected by DNA surprises or somehow genetic experts for her book. So I haven't read the book yet, but I have it on order. I just wanted to share quickly about this webinar and what Libby Copeland talked about. But she talked about seekers and secret keepers. And after listening to this webinar, I realized I'm a seeker. I think a lot of NPEs are. 18 months ago, I found my genetic family through a DNA results test. And I started to seek out my biological paternal family. Seekers are people whose identities are deepened by understanding their past. And then there are the secret keepers on the other side. And secret keepers, they are more rooted in shame. Secret keepers that's also kind of a culture of the past. 60 years ago, things were much more taboo. So there's a culture clash with secret keepers who are trying to keep the secret. And then our present culture is much more a culture of transparency. Our present culture is, speak out, speak your truth. And that's where I am right now. And there's a huge clash with secret keepers and seekers. And I just thought that was so interesting. And then another thing I found out was, someone mentioned this. I believe it was Kara from Right to Know. She said, take a picture of everything on your ancestry DNA or your 23andMe or family, whichever your database is that you're using. If you open up results and you find matches and names and people with a lot of CMs that you want to eventually contact or remember their information, if you haven't memorized it, they can go in and delete their profile. They can deactivate it, and that information can go away the next time you log in. So quick, take a picture of everything you see in case someone chooses to go in and remove their information from the database. And I just wanted to pass that along because I know that might be helpful for someone. Today I have an NPE, and her name is Marissa. Marissa, are you still there?
Yes.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, doing good.
Thank you so much for sharing your story today.
Yeah, of course.
So, why don't you go ahead and start at the beginning? If you don't mind, also let me know like when you were born and about who was in your family of origin.
Okay. So I was born in 1996. So I'm pretty young still, finding all this out. My I was raised by a single dad. My mom had a drug problem and she got put in jail. And by the time I was still a toddler, maybe, about 5, and she was in jail, and my dad got full custody of me and my younger brother. And after that, we would see her every other weekend until I was about 9. And then she quit wanting to see us. And so I never really had a relationship with my mom. She's not a great person. My dad raised me, um, me and my brother by himself mostly. He always had, girlfriends and stuff, but, he did his best. And his parents were the only other family that I ever saw, no cousins, no aunts or uncles. It was just my dad and his parents and my brother. So never really had a big family. And I was already at a young age, realizing that family is more than just blood, because my mom was supposed to be my family, but she's off who knows where. And when I was 19, I'm 24 now, but when I was 19, I reconnected with my mom and got to know her. And within just a couple of years, she overdosed and got put in a rehab. And I was right back to feeling like she abandoned me all over again, almost. And so this year, that's kind of just how my childhood was, I guess. It was just really my dad. It was very small. I'm little brother, I'm the big sister, and that was it. But now I'm 24, and earlier this year in May, my grandfather passed away. And 2 days later was when I got my 23andMe results back. And the only reason I even did 23andMe was because I took Ancestry. And my dad's mother is from Thailand. So my dad is half Thai, half white. And so I got my ancestry results back and it had no Asian at all. It was like super, super Irish and like German and like just Northern European. There was no Asian at all. And so I was like in denial, like, oh, this is wrong. And I went and paid another like $100 something for 23andMe. And 2 days after the funeral, I got the results in and I matched with a half brother. And I was like, well, there's no way. And I messaged him still in denial and was like, this test seems to think that we're half siblings. And he said, yes, we are. I know you. I've known about you my whole life. And him and his sister apparently have known who my biological dad is. That's who their biological dad is. And they've known about me this whole time. And my mom wanted to always keep it a secret. And my dad, when I confronted him, I let him grieve over my grandpa and tried to give it a few weeks, but it was just eating me up inside. I cannot keep a secret. I am so bad at lying. I felt like I was lying to my dad. I wanted to know if he knew, and I was super confused. And then it made sense why I don't look like him, why my brother doesn't really look like me. And this half brother, when I met him, he looks just like me. And um, it was very strange. And I was I'm better now. It's been quite a few months, but like, when you first find something like that out, I felt like everything I've experienced throughout my whole life, it was like I was looking at it through different eyes all of a sudden. So I talked to my dad, and he said he always knew there was a chance that I wasn't his, but he just decided, nope, this is my kid. And he married my mom and then had my brother. And that was that. And part of the mystery got solved about my mom going to jail. She went to jail she went to jail because of my biological dad. My half sibling's mom, she and my biological dad stole her identity and stole a bunch of money from her. And my mom took the fall for it and went to jail. And so, all these people knew I existed. My biological dad knew I existed. And Renee just kept it a secret. My dad never cared to find out. He said, this is my kid. I don't care. I'm so grateful for that, because my biological dad is also a drug addict. And my half siblings have told me that, he's homeless and travels randomly, hitchhikes to different states. Right now he's in Oklahoma or something. And so I feel like I sort of dodged a bullet there. I was very grateful that, my life could have went a totally different direction. Thankfully too, my half siblings, younger brother who's 20, a younger sister who is 23, they have always known about me and always wanted to know me, and they looked up to me even though they'd never met me. And I've got to visit with them a few times this year. And I even invited them to my wedding earlier this year in August. And everything has surprisingly turned out pretty well. And I know some people, get rejected um, by, the siblings that they never knew about. And I guess I got lucky because I almost rejected them. I almost said, I can't be your sister. I don't know y'all, but I'll try to be your friend. And then now it's just turned into me caring about them more than that, just because they put in the effort. And my dad doesn't talk about it. It's still kind of taboo, secret, don't really tell people, but it's kind of like I have this other little part of my life now that I go and experience, and it's very strange.
Wow, thank you for sharing that, by the way.
Very confusing when I try to tell people about it.
You do a great job of explaining that. I do have a couple
Mhm.
questions. So, your mother, she always knew then, or did she?
Yeah, that's a part. That's one thing I forgot. So when I moved up here, so I lived like 3 hours away from where my mom lived. And when I reconnected with her when I was 19, I moved in with her for a short while. And my half siblings I live in central Louisiana, and they are in the Dallas, Texas area. And my sister had come to the area and was trying to give her dad a chance, the same time that I'm trying to give my mom a chance. So we both were like trying to give our failed parents a second chance and getting to know them again. And she ended up kind of just getting abandoned by her father all over again. And she actually stayed with my mom for a short while before she went back to Texas. And she had told me literally weeks before I came to town to stay with my mom, her and my mom got in a big fight because she wanted to contact me. And my mom blew up on her and like turned into a different person and said, you will never talk to her, and like kicked her out. And it was like a big fight. So she was very actively trying to hide that from me. And looking back, I feel so stupid just moving right in with her and being buddy buddy. And, she was still just keeping secrets and lying like she always does. And that made me just angry all over again. So she knew.
Oh, definitely. I'm assuming you are estranged from your mother right now.
Yeah, it's been in February of 2018 was the last time I spoke to her, because it was actually my birthday's in February, and just a few days before my birthday was when I already knew she was doing drugs. I figured it out, and I kind of just ignored it. But then when she overdosed, like just a few days before my birthday that year, I kind of, I guess, like it broke the I don't know, it was just, I was fed up, and
That was it.
I was like, I'm not doing this anymore, because I tried, and I even tried going to therapy with her, because she's so, drugs really mess someone up, and you know she was off doing drugs with my biological dad. Like, that's why they got along, and how she went to jail. So I come from these two people that just have these addiction problems, and their brains are fried. Like, she does not, she's like 43 or 42 now, and she does not act like it one bit. That really, she's definitely stunted. When you talk to her, you can tell. So I kind of just had to accept that she wasn't capable of being the kind of person I needed her to be. And I think that's when I finally accepted that I was going to kind of give up. Yeah, I felt bad at first, saying like, oh, I come from two people, not just one person. That's awful. Now I come from two people that are, because I always was like, well, at least my dad, that raised me, at least he's fairly normal. And I kind of had to talk to a therapist and got a little better, because I started having those thoughts of like, both of the people that created me didn't want me, didn't care about me. They're both, addicted to drugs. And I kind of had to realize that that doesn't say anything about who I am.
No, completely. Yeah, that is so hard, especially when you find out your true parentage and you find out, traits about your mom and your dad that you don't necessarily want to see in yourself. And it sounds like, there's nature versus nurture. And it sounds like you got a lot of nurture from your birth certificate father. You actually sound incredibly well adjusted considering your genetics. Good for you for going to therapy.
I like to think I've done fairly well. I'm married now. We had bought a house and sold our house, and I have my grandma, who she's like, I guess would be my mother figure to me. She, her and my grandpa, they're the ones that like got us off the school bus, made us do our homework while my dad was busy, working to take care of us. And I was able to tell my grandma the truth. I would have wanted to tell my grandpa. I would have loved to know what he thought. I'm sad that he just barely missed all this, because I talked to him about a lot of stuff that I can't talk to my dad, because my dad gets a little emotional and angry sometimes, but my grandpa was just so calm and, relaxed, and he loved to joke and be silly. And when I told my grandma, she was just like, well, that doesn't matter. Your dad raised you and took care of you, and that's it. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, I don't really want to go tell the whole world about this, so don't tell really anybody that doesn't need to know. And she was like, no, of course, it doesn't matter. Nobody needs to know that. That's our business. And then she was like, do you want some wine? And then she opened up some wine, and we sat there and drank and went back to normal. My dad treated it, he was very uncomfortable when I told him it was just us by ourselves. And he started fidgeting with things and like looking around. I could immediately tell he was so uncomfortable. But he let me talk as long as I wanted, and he let me cry, and he hugged me, and he didn't say much, and he kind of just said, well, I'm your dad, and that doesn't change anything, and I would do it all over again if I could. And now you're going to go and have this new part of your life. That's your part of your life now. Like, that's your story that you get to go explore and stuff, is kind of what he was, in regards to like spending time with these new siblings. He was like, that's your deal to go handle. And, you go take care of that. Everything's all right.
Who was Ty, your grandma or your grandpa?
My grandma.
Oh my gosh. You had to lose that Thai heritage when you got your DNA results.
Yeah. And all my friends, I always made jokes about like, oh, it's because I'm Asian. Like, I would just make silly jokes like that, because I obviously don't look Asian, but I loved my grandma so much, and I'd always like say something about it. And like Asian, Chinese food, all that stuff was my favorite. I loved like, she worked at a local Oriental place like growing up, and we'd go over there and pick her up from work with my grandpa and stuff. And she was like, she taught me so much stuff, random things about Thailand and everything. And So now it felt really strange because I was like, oh, I'm a liar. I was sitting here thinking I'm Thai, and I'm not, not even a little.
Yeah. Like this was part of your upbringing, your childhood memories.
My grandma makes me feel better because even here just lately, I love to eat. She's been teaching me like her Thai recipes and stuff here lately. And because since my grandpa passed away, we moved in next door. We sold our house and we moved next door to her to be there for her and take her places because she can't drive. She never got a license when she came to America because my grandpa just took care of her. And so she's been teaching me how to cook stuff. We've been going and doing things, and she calls me she calls me like her Thai girl, her little Thai girl or something. She'll say something silly like that. And so she still sees me the same.
Let me ask about your new half brother and half sister that are now part of your life. And they went to your wedding in August. Congratulations, by the way. You said that they always knew about you. Now, how did they know that from their mom or your dad? Yeah, I mean your biological dad, their biological dad.
Yeah. So their mom actually always, she lived out in like the Dallas area and we're in central Louisiana, so she was kind of far away, but she always, she's already like wanting to adopt me. She's like, I will be your surrogate mom. And like she's definitely the kind of person that like wants to be a mom to everybody. So she's definitely welcomed me and my husband in like open arms, and we go spend the night at her house, and she has invited us to Thanksgiving and Christmas and is like kind of rushing things a little bit, but she's real sweet. But she said she always wanted, she would tell Jeff, the dad, be like, you should do something. And they would tell my mom, you need to tell her. And then my mom would do the same thing, like, curse her out, block her on Facebook or wherever, block her everywhere, block her number. And so she kind of just, I guess, just kind of gave up a little and was like, well, they want to keep it a secret and not let her know. But she always made sure that her two kids knew that they had a sister out there. And my sister, she made me start crying because she told me she would like find me online, like when I was like a teenager and she was a little bit younger. She'd find me online and see pictures of me. And she said she didn't even know me, but she like looked up to me and wanted to be just like me and thought that I was so cool. And like, I guess had this idea in her head. Um, and it was so adorable, I guess. Like, I just thought that was so cute. I was like, oh, there was a little sister out there like that wanted to be like me and she didn't even know me.
Oh my
So
God, that is so sweet. Oh, and
yeah.
here all along you didn't even know of their existence, but they knew of you and already looked up to you.
Yeah, and they're such, I'm lucky that they are good people and they're so easy to talk to. And we've spent a couple of weekends with them, and we don't even have to go anywhere. One day we just laid in and watched movies all together. And they're close to my age, close enough. They're 20 and 23 and or 22 maybe. I'm already forgetting. They're in their like early 20s and I'm 24, so they're not that far off. So it's also exciting because I'm like, oh, these can be like my friends.
Oh, completely. What about your brother you were raised with? How does he feel about this?
So he was kind of confused at first. What I found out, he didn't understand. He was like, oh, so they're my brother and sister too? And he was like, oh, so uh mom and dad had other, like, he didn't understand even though I was telling it to him over and over again, and it took him a couple times of like me repeating it for him to get it.
Yeah.
And and then even he's so sweet though, because even after that, like I told him we were going to Dallas, and he was like, oh, I want to come. And I was like, they're my brother and sister, want to visit them. He's like, well, I can be their brother too, I can go. And like, he's just so sweet and is like all for it and super nice. But he hasn't really, it hasn't really phased him. He's kind of just like, okay. Like, he's very accepting. He still even talks to our mom. Like, he never cut her back off after because he, shortly after I moved up here to be around her, he came too. And he still talks to her and doesn't hold any grudges towards her. He's very like sweet and has a pure soul, and he helps me because he doesn't make it a big deal either. And so it's just very accepting of it all.
I understand. Now it sounds like you're probably safer and better off with some of these people not in your lives. It sounds like they could actually be very toxic. Your birth father you were talking about, would you ever want to meet him though?
No, they asked me that. My new siblings, they've asked me too, and I was like no, and they kind of were relieved and was like, good, you don't want to meet him, trust me, because they when they were young, their mom still wanted them to know their dad, and when they were young they would go over there and he would shoot up drugs in front of them and not take care of them. And they, she tried for a little while to have him have a relationship with his kids, but they saw probably some pretty awful stuff themselves, and so they do not have anything to do with him. They had a stepfather that raised them from when they were toddlers, and so that's who they considered like the person that raised them and their dad. So I wouldn't. I mean, I already know how my mom is and how that went, so I feel like I've got a general idea of how that would go. So wouldn't really be interested. I got all I need where I'm at right now.
Yep, it sounds like it. Sounds like that's a smart idea.
Yeah, I got a lucky break because I've joined that Facebook group about people that have gone through the same thing, and it's really sad sometimes when it doesn't go that great, and they block you and don't want to talk to you, or if you have to still keep it a secret. I feel pretty lucky considering that everything bad that's happened, it went as good as it could have. Like, everything worked out. I mean, just for me personally, I'd like to share that this year's been extra hard. It was COVID, everything shutting down, and then my grandpa died, and then finding this news out. And then during all that, I'm also planning a wedding, and I'm in Louisiana, and we had a Hurricane Laura happened 2 days before my wedding.
Oh my gosh.
We still had the wedding. We were like, nope, we're doing it. And we still did it. And so I feel like maybe some of those things are very overwhelming, and you never realize how strong you are and how much you can handle until you just kind of have to do it. Like, this year I feel like was definitely the year for everything to go wrong, and I was like, well, gotta handle it, let's take care of it. I took care of business, and everything's taking care of my grandma now. Everything's calming down. The wedding's over. The news of finding that out about myself has definitely gotten better with time. And I think everything's going to be all right in the end.
Oh my gosh, Marissa, you have had a year from hell. you have been through 2020 has been crazy for you.
I hear people say something about 2020 and making fun of it, and I'm like, no, you have no idea.
Okay, well, if people want to know more about Marissa or get in touch with her, they can reach out to me, and I will make sure and pass that along about Marissa's story, episode 57. I can be reached at npestories@gmail.com. And also my Instagram handle is lilymwood. Lily is Lilym Wood. Before I close today, I do want to put in a plug for an episode that will be coming out on November 30th, 2020. It's a crossover episode with Eve Sturgis of Everything's Relative. Eve will also be releasing a crossover episode on her podcast, Everything's Relative. And that is really all I have for today. Thanks again to Marissa for sharing today. These stories are here for us to identify with. If you are an NPE that would like to share your story, email npestories@gmail.com. You do not have to give any identifying information. But if you are an NPE and would like to share your story, I'd like to hear from you. Subscribe to this podcast to hear more. Come heal with us.